All right, hey guys, so welcome to my first video for 2022. This is just gonna be a refresh from what we did before we left for winter break with trigonometry. So the first thing is when we have our setup, so you're gonna look on the reference sheet, which is posted all around the classroom for this formula. And remember, I want you to turn that formula into a formula triangle. So the top part from the formula goes in the top of the triangle, and the left part goes right here, and the right part goes right here. All right, so make sure you set it up like this. No one is gonna give you this formula triangle. You have to create it from over here. You're gonna have one for cosine. So adjacent is on top, so adjacent goes on top. Cosine A goes over here, and hypotenuse goes here. And then for my last one with tangent, opposite goes on top, adjacent, and tangent A. Don't forget to put this little A degrees, like that is attached to the word tangent, that's attached to the word cosine, that's attached to the word sine. So just make sure you include that when you put that over there. Okay, so let's look at our first problem. It says we're solving for x, and I can see x is the length of SR. So SR is a side. So when we're solving for a side, we're just gonna fill in our formula triangle, and it should be pretty easy to solve. So let's see. We have to identify which sides they are. So x, the side SR, compared to the angle 35, because it's between the angle and the right angle, that's gonna be your adjacent side. And the 78 is across from the right angle, so that's gonna be your hypotenuse. And we always have to choose the formula based on the side that you're looking for and the side that you know. So adjacent and hypotenuse goes with cosine. So this is the part where you guys are lazy and you don't follow my instructions. So that's how you get the wrong answer. So let's not be lazy and follow my instructions so we can get the right answer. So we're gonna actually draw the formula triangle for cosine, and we're gonna fill it in. So cosine, the degrees were 35. So you literally have to write the word COS and then the number 35. And then adjacent goes on top, that's the x, and hypotenuse is 78. And then if you look, if we cover up the x, because these are next to each other, that indicates multiplication. So we're just gonna do cosine 35 times 78. So it's pretty easy. If you're typing this in the Casio, you're gonna type 35 cosine times 78 equals. So make sure you hit that equals button and it'll give you the answer. If you're typing this into the FSA calculator, you're just gonna literally type cosine, it'll make a parenthesis show up, and then you'll just hit times 78. Make sure whenever you do this, you do the multiplying by 78 on the outside of the parenthesis. Okay, so I put this in my calculator, and the calculator should give you 63.89385945. And then because I said to round to the nearest tenth, you're gonna go to the tenths place and cut it off there, but you do have to look at the number behind it. So because that's a 5 or higher, you're gonna do 63.9 for our final answer. All right, so let's try another one. For this example, it says we're gonna solve for x, round to the nearest tenth. I can see here that x represents the distance from N to L. So that's side NL. So since we're solving for a side, it'll be pretty easy when we put it in. We just have to use our formula triangle because x is the hypotenuse and 15.7 is across from the 67 degrees. So the angle that, or the side that's across from the acute angle that you're going to use is called the opposite side. And then this side right here is the adjacent side. So we don't need the adjacent side. We do need to use the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So that's going to be sine. So we can write sine 67. The opposite is 15.7 and the hypotenuse is x. So if I look at this and I cover up the x, I can see these two are on top of each other. So I'm going to make a fraction, which is just division. And if you were doing the FSA calculator, you literally just type this in and it gives you the answer. If you're using the Casio, you're going to type 15.7 divided by 67 sine. Remember, when you use Casio, you got to put this in backwards. And then don't forget to hit the equals sign. Most of the time when you guys mess up, it's because you didn't hit the equals sign. So let me go ahead and do that on my calculator that you can't see over here. So I'm using the FSA calculator, so I'm literally just typing 15.7 divided by, and since that's a fancy calculator, you can just type it as it looks. So sine 67. And over on the other side, it tells you the answer, which is 17.055857. Because we're rounding to the nearest tenth, this is the tenths place, but I do have to look at the number behind it. That's a 5 or higher, so we're going to call this 17.1. All right, cool. Now, the other type of problems that you'll get in trigonometry are the problems where you need to solve for x, but x is the angle. Right. So if x is the angle, let's say we're going to go ahead and fill in our formula triangle. In this case, x is going to go here in this group with either sine, cosine, or tangent. And you have to figure out which one based on the two sides that you're using. So because this is your opposite side and this is your adjacent side, because the adjacent side connects the angle to the right angle, so that's adjacent. And then the opposite side is across from the acute angle. So even though we don't know what x is, we know it's an acute angle. So this side's opposite. So opposite and adjacent goes with tangent. So we're going to write tangent, and we usually would put the degrees here, but the degrees are just x. So that's what we're going to write, is tan x. And then opposite goes on top, and adjacent goes on the bottom. Now this is what it looks like. So if you were to cover up the little x, we have tan 7/3. But there's a trick here, because when x is the degrees, what we're actually going to put into the calculator, now this will be the FSA calculator, is tan, but because we're solving for the angle, we're going to turn that degree, so it has tan degrees, we're going to turn that degree into a little -1. And then a parenthesis will pop up, and then you literally just put 7/3. If you were putting this into the Casio calculator, you're going to type 7 divided by 3, and then you're going to hit shift tan, because that, if you hit shift tan, that makes the little -1, happen. And then you won't actually have to hit equals at the end. You do have to hit equals right here. So 7 divided by 3, hit equals. So turn that 7 divided by 3 into a decimal. So 7 divided by 3, hit equals right here. Make that a decimal, and then hit shift tan, and it'll give you the answer. I prefer to use the FSA calculator. I just think it's easier because you don't have to remember anywhere that you put the equal sign. So we're just going to do tangent -1, and then you put 7/3 in parentheses. And that'll give you the answer, which is 66.801404949. Now in this one, I said to round to the nearest degree. I think Delta Math usually has you round to the nearest tenth, in which case that would be 66.8. But on the FSA, a lot of times they say to round to the nearest degree, and the nearest degree is the nearest whole number. So you would cut it off at the decimal, but you still have to look at the number behind it. That's a 5 or higher, so we're going to have to round it up to 67. So if it had said the nearest tenth, you would put 66.8. If they had said the nearest hundredth, it would actually still be 66.8 because this 0 has a 1 behind it. So just make sure you're paying attention to what they ask you to round to. And good luck.